Welcome to XYPN Radio, where your host Alan Moore brings you into a community of fee-only financial planners who want to profitably and successfully serve Gen X and Gen Y clients. If you're ready to get the knowledge you need from leaders in your field, learn from forward-thinking advisors, and take action on your own goals, XYPN Radio is the show for you. Here's your host.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of XYPN Radio. I am your host, Alan Moore. Thank you so much for joining us today. Now, today's episode is a mailbag episode. We call these Alan and Kitces Unhinged, where Michael Kitces and I dig into listener questions and give our thoughts and opinions on whatever the question that is being asked. These are my favorite episodes since we get to hear what you want to know more about as a listener and helps us to stay on top of what's really stressing out advisors. In this episode, you will hear us talking about robo-advisors and how we think they will affect the industry. We then give advice to a listener that is career changing into financial planning and wants to start a firm one day and wants some advice for making that decision. We then had a great discussion on serving a niche client base. And then our final question ended us with a discussion on how large advisory firms can start to adopt a monthly retainer model that we champion so highly and hold on to some of their more entrepreneurial younger advisors. Now, remember to join our VIP community at xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP, where you can ask questions just like the ones that we're covering today that very well may get answered on a future Alan and Kitces Unhinged episode. Now, this month's episodes are brought to you by Financial Planners Assistance, providing compliance services to financial planners and other investment advisors since 1982. Financial Planners Assistance is a boutique consulting firm that provides the personalized compliance services firms are looking for. Check them out at financialplannersassistance.com, and you can also check out the interview that we hosted with their president and senior compliance consultant, Jim Cullen. All right, without further ado, here is our mailbag episode. Hey, Michael, how you doing this afternoon, man?
I'm doing well, Alan. How are you?
I'm good. We have to constantly iterate on how we do intros, and I feel like I have to say something about it every time because it's always awkward to bring you back on the show because we essentially co-host half the episodes now. So anyway, I'm glad to have you on, though.
It's great to be a co-host, guest, returning visitor to the show.
Especially for these episodes. These are definitely my favorite, the Alan and Kitces Unhinged, not only because I get to go by my middle name, because Alan is actually my middle name, and you get to go by your last name. But these are just fun because I think not enough people get the opportunity to hear you rant. They always hear me rant because that's pretty much all I ever do. But I think these are always fun to kind of get and dig in a little bit, not only in terms of some of what we work on, but just questions that listeners are having.
I have to admit, I never even realized, and you know, we always get caught in our own heads about like our own self-image. I never really thought of myself as a ranter, as someone that rants this way until, you know, between what apparently I do on these podcasts, and then as many listeners know, I've been doing regular Periscope broadcasts now as well, which I call my office hours. And, you know, you can ask me questions and I answer questions as they come in. And someone had sent me a message that said something to the effect of, "Hey, Mike, saw the new Periscope rants you're doing. I really like them." And I was thinking, well, that wasn't quite the effect I was going for, Periscope rants, but I guess that is kind of what they turn into. You know, we get fired up. I get fired up about these topics. I know you get fired up about these topics. We've got lots of questions coming in these days into the mailbag. And for those of you who don't know, for the podcast here, to get like the most authentic rant possible, Alan doesn't even tell me the questions in advance. I have no idea what's coming. He just tries to pick things that will get me fired up.
I try to pick things that we'll argue about, but, you know, we've been basically professionally dating for so long now that you've come over to my side on so many of these topics that it's hard to find something we can argue about. But my dad always said,
I've come over to your side.
That's what I would say. You know, and I was raised that my dad would say, you don't necessarily have to agree with what you're saying. You just have to be really passionate about it. So I can always pick the flip side of an argument, whether I believe in it or not. But we do not do that on this show because this is our opportunity to actually give some opinions. But to your point, your brand has very much been built around, you know, facts and giving annuity, longevity, glide path presentation thingies that I still don't understand what you're saying. But It sounds really interesting. And I know where to go when I need to ask a question about glide path. I just go to Twitter and ask you. But this is an opportunity for people to get the real answers and hear what we really think, which is fun. So we will dive right in.
As opposed to what I say on Twitter, which is not what I really think.
It's what you think, but it's a little more honed in, maybe a little more to brand. Maybe this is the new Kitces brand.
Well, I think the difference is just truly, and like I think the difference is when you do these kinds of formats, you get more room to kind of open up and express yourself. And I think there's significance to that for all of you who are listening of, you should be taking this as an idea of ways you can reach the people you're trying to communicate with as well. I mean, recognize like I'm not giving away state secrets here, but like we don't purely do this podcast out of like just the pure charity and like, hey, for shits and giggles, Al and I just love like talking to each other and recording ourselves. Like we do this because we're trying to get out a certain message around financial planning and helping young people, and a mission that we're very passionate about, and frankly, to help bring a little bit of visibility to a business we created to help solve that problem in the world, XY Planning Network. And there is an effect that happens when you pick different ways to communicate a message, including formats like this, like a podcast. You get to form a different kind of connection and relationship with the people you're trying to reach and get a message out to. And I found over the past year, like more and more of our XY Planning Network members have kind of picked up on this phenomenon that like the things we do to build and grow XY Planning Network are exactly the same things that we tell our members to do to build their practices as well, because it works. Like we're doing it and living it and executing everything from having a service model around monthly retainers, setting out a service calendar of all the things you're going to do for people, being able to clearly articulate your benefits, reaching out to them with content marketing and podcasts and different ways to get your message out. Like we don't just say this stuff like in vague theory. We actually execute this to build the business to serve all of our members. At the same time, we advocate for them to use it to build their own businesses as well, because we know it works. And this podcast format, I think, is a very fun way to explore some of these channels.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I remember Pat Flynn at the Podcast Movement Conference, which I think this past year was the second year, and the third year is coming up this summer in Chicago. But anyway, Podcast Movement is an entire conference dedicated to podcasting. And he said something really interesting that I took away, and we ultimately launched the podcast after that conference. And he said, if you drop me in a room with 1,000 people and I'm speaking to 1,000 people, that's a massive keynote session. I'm going to be absolutely terrified. It's going to be just gut wrenching. It's going to be so scary and such a big deal. But then we talk about, oh, well, my podcast episode got 1,000 downloads. I guess that's okay. And it's like, now, wait a minute. Think about the reach. And, I'm happy to show data with folks and we could post something about it. But I think we've had just over 30,000 downloads of XYPN Radio since we launched. This is episode 28. And so under 30 episodes, over 30,000. So we're averaging, let's say, 1,000 downloads per episode. Some do a little better than others. It would take me a decade of my current speaking, of going to 15 to 20 conferences a year and speaking, to reach 30,000 people. And so one, it's a wonderful way to reach our target market, because we said, like, where's our target market sitting? And the answer is not necessarily coming to national conferences and things like that. But it's just so easy to leverage. It's such a time saver. We could probably do an entire episode just on why we're doing the podcast, how it's effective, what we're doing that works, what hasn't worked, that sort of thing. And I know of at least 3 or 4 podcasts that have been launched after seeing XYPN Radio. All of those were consumer focused. So it's really exciting to see. So
yeah, in this theme, maybe we should try actually answering one of the questions that we got
one
in
or
the
two
mailbag for this week.
We'll see how many we can get through
as we just pontificate on podcasting and advisor marketing already without even getting to the questions yet.
Pontificate. That's a good word. We should have a Alan and Kitces pontificate episode. Anyway. All right. So question number 1. Well, it's not really a question. It's more of a statement, is to discuss emergent robo technologies, how to implement in a practice, advisor options, upsides, downsides. So we could do a year's worth of weekly episodes just on robos. But what are you, I guess, just the emergent technology and the direction it's coming from, what are you seeing that it's going to do to financial planning? Is it going to take all of our clients? Are the robos taking all of our clients tomorrow?
No, it's not taking all of our clients. It hasn't been happening that way already. When we look at the industry numbers, the two biggest robo-advisors that are really pure robo-advisors are Wealthfront and Betterment. They each have close to $3 billion in a marketplace that's almost $30 trillion. So like they have 0.02% market share, which is basically trivially irrelevant. I mean, when you talk about like truly disruptive technologies, you look at things like a company like WhatsApp did to text messaging, where like they took 50% of market share of text messaging in like 3 years. That's actual disruption. If that was happening in our space, Wealthfront and Betterment would have $1 trillion each. That would actually be disruptive. If they raised like $1 trillion in a couple of years, it would be like, holy blank, like this is actual disruption. $3 billion, like there are mutual fund companies that do that in a week. I think Vanguard has $3 billion days at this point. So it's really not disrupting. What I think the robo technology did, though, was just highlight how incredibly bad most of our technology is as advisors, right? Like we try to help someone transfer money around. It's like, well, if we get the paperwork signed quickly and I fax it off tomorrow, maybe I can get your accounts transferred in 2 weeks. And then Betterment comes along and says, oh, well, why don't you just open your account with your smartphone and we'll have it opened, funded, and invested in, 30 minutes. And just seeing that kind of disparity was, I think, sort of humiliating for the industry of we didn't realize how bad our technology was because everybody was kind of similarly bad. So we only competed in small increments until a new company came in and showed how far we all were behind. And so now you're seeing the industry go through this massive reinvestment as everybody buys, builds what they're calling robos and robo technology, but really is nothing more than if I can sell my house without ever taking a pen to a piece of paper and doing it all with e-signatures, I should be able to do the same damn thing with an investment account as well. And now we're finally getting up to that point. And it's kind of been euphemistically dubbed robo technology. To me, all it really is just the ongoing evolution of technology that we were frankly a little behind on and overdue for. And now we're getting caught up. But the idea that like, hey, wouldn't it be awesome? My client could open an investment account and allocate their dollars using their smartphone instead of meeting with me is not robo-advisors replacing advisors. It's advisors shouldn't be doing that paperwork anyways. It's a dumb thing to be doing. That should be completely automated with technology. So you can meet with your clients to talk about actual, useful, relevant advice-related things, not pushing paperwork around. So I view it as a huge productivity enhancer and improvement. I can't wait for our advisors to get more of this technology available. And that was the debate even that I publicly had in more than one debate on Twitter with Betterment CEO John Stein and some of the others there was, as they came in and said, we're here to disrupt advisors, I kept saying, maybe you'll serve some direct-to-consumer or do-it-yourselfers who are never going to work with us anyways, but you have awesome technology that we want. Like, I want to be able to do that too. I don't want to spend time on paperwork with my clients. I want to spend time talking about advice things with our clients. And if technology helps to solve that, we're all better for that, not because we're getting replaced, because we're able to do more of what we should be doing with our clients in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, we're just an industry that's just so far behind when it comes to technology. A really good way to write off some losses used to be invest in advisor-facing fintech. I mean, we just saw time after time these companies failing and getting bought out and just the technology getting tanked. And we're finally now starting to see investment dollars flow in because of eMoney and LearnVest and Quovo, all these different companies that are getting bought up and shifted around. And there's big, big dollars at stake now that we're now finally starting to get some technology investment. And I would say that, we've talked about this a little bit before, that historically advisors have been all human. It has been 100% human. This is a relationship business and we're going to do it all on a one-to-one basis. And then the robos came in and said, well, what if we could do it on a 1 to a million basis? Purely virtual, no hand holding, no personalization, but it is all, this will serve 1 million people. And the truth is we can use the technology that they're leveraging to serve 1 million people to take our practices and either make them more efficient so that we have to work less hours, hire less staff, or be able to serve more clients and make more money. And you'll be able to figure out what that looks like. And we've jokingly called it the cyborg advisor, half human, half technology. But truth be told, that's where everyone is going. Every industry is adopting technology to make themselves more efficient, to leverage, to get rid of. meaningless, silly tasks that you don't need to be a CFP financial planner with 20 years of experience and a business owner to do, or have to hire someone and pay them $40,000 or $50,000 a year to do, like account opening paperwork.
And again, it's not that the technology replaces and eliminates us. It morphs our jobs and what we do, and frankly moves us up the line, up the value chain. There was a picture I saw recently on I forget one social media site or another that I thought that made this so poignantly well. It was a picture of a like 1950s style corporate office environment where it's just like rows of desks, one desk after another in a giant open floor plan, one person and another sitting in front of a desk. All of them are like bent over the desk, focused in on doing a bunch of paperwork on their desk. And it's just like 100 people as far as the eye can see, fluorescent lights, like, think any 1950s style movie that you've seen of just, rows of people sitting. And the caption says, all of these people were replaced by one spreadsheet. Excel eliminated all the job all 100 of those people did, which was just a bunch of accounting related paperwork and tracking stuff that you put into one spreadsheet from one computer. Now, that doesn't mean all corporate employees are now unemployed and that no one works in accounting anymore. It's that there's a whole bunch of crap work that a computer just automates with math, so you don't have to do it with the slide rule in a room of 100 people. And now we get to move on to more productive tasks. So, I think you're seeing very much the same thing when it comes to the advisor technology. And then even from there, you can really kind of segment the technology further into what it's really meant to do. There are some tools that are really built for prospecting and finding clients, although actually not many of those. There are a bunch that are to help engage a prospect when they come to your website. So tools like Riskalyze or Vesterly. Then you've got tools that are really just meant to help with the onboarding process, right? Okay, I'm taking a client on. I already got them. I went through the process. We need to do their paperwork. I don't want it to involve actual paper. So you see onboarding technology that's now coming forth from the custodians as well as sort of intermediary players. Upside Advisor was working on this when Envestnet bought them. GemStep is working on this.
Even programs like Laser
facilitates this. Laserfish is doing some, and Laser App are doing some pieces of this. So we see, technology hitting lots of different parts of sort of the advisor value chain, or where we engage or where we're involved, none of which is actually replacing the core of what we do, which is providing advice to clients, forming those relationships that allow us to actually be able to hold them accountable to their behavior change and sort of that core of what we do. What I think you're actually seeing is the technology is forcing advisors to actually spend their time delivering advice.
Doing the valuable stuff.
Yeah, doing the valuable stuff. So if you're an advisor who's positioned to do that, this is like glorious manna from heaven. You just get to spend more time in what you do best and provide the most value. Frankly, for a lot of people who didn't actually provide much advice value, they never got educated, they don't have CFPs, they don't actually know what they're talking about in terms of giving advice. They really just were focused around trying to sell their products or, facilitate paperwork. Yeah, your job's kind of screwed. I mean, if you were one of those people that was doing the accounting paperwork with the slide rule when the spreadsheets came out, you were screwed and your job was gone. It doesn't mean accounting jobs were gone. It means your job was gone unless you upgraded your skills to be an accountant who uses a spreadsheet instead of an accountant who uses a slide rule less efficiently than what a spreadsheet can do automatically. And so it's that kind of skills, use the technology and upgrade your skills to build on top of it. That's the kind of transition I think we're looking at here.
I think we can look at the robo technology as doing two things. One is a lot of what we're talking about, which is just making your practice more efficient using technology. So this happens with account opening, providing a client portal experience, getting your CRM up to snuff, all of these different things that, rebalancing software, it's kind of pushing the envelope in terms of making us more efficient. The other thing that robos are doing is I think they're going to cause the real disruption on the trading side. And this is being much more efficient with trading, bringing down the cost of trading, which has been happening for decades, right? I mean, we used to cost like $80 to trade a stock, and that was cheap, right? So like we're bringing down the cost of trading. And I think that is what is exciting to me, is not only is almost, and some of the robos are positioned to possibly disintermediate the ETF and mutual fund layer, which brings down cost. It makes trading much more efficient. It gives us access to things and ideas and investment solutions that we've never really had before. So none of that replaces the advisor. It is all just going to make us much more efficient, hopefully less expensive, and possibly even give us some options to customize in ways that we've never dreamed possible. And I'll give you one example, and that's in the socially responsible or impact investing world. Historically, it's been, if a client comes in and they go, we believe that guns are bad. We don't want to support any company with guns. In order to really build a portfolio for that client, they've got to have millions of dollars, because you're going to be picking individual stocks, because you can't buy the S&P 500. You can't buy anything. I mean, no index, no mutual fund, except the very few out there that claimed SRI, and maybe they actually were anti-oil, not anti-gun. Is that really reflecting what your clients want? And that's where some of the robo technology, I think, is going to be really exciting, because it is positioned and kind of poised to give us the ability to buy the S&P 500, no guns.
So true. And this to me is where I'm still excited about this. Some of the technologies I feel like is sort of flying under the radar screen for advisors. Motif kind of has the ability to do this. You could craft, with a little bit of kind of combinations of their motifs. You could basically say, I just want to own basically the S&P 500, no guns, and a little bit extra to green energy companies. And you could build that like custom S&P index with tilts, very customized to exactly what you want to do. That's the kind of technology that's coming, and not because you have to do this complex portfolio design process. They just put the stocks up there. You just grab little sliders and drag down the Vice stocks, drag up the green energy stocks, hit go, poof, off it goes, and it buys. And I think that whole dynamic of just a whole other level of technology tools to facilitate investment portfolios, as well as just the explosion of outsourcing investments altogether, that I think are very sustained trends in our space. And it just gets back to the fact that, we're less and less in the portfolio design business and the stock selling business and the mutual fund selling business. And if that's what you're clinging to, the next 10 years are going to be pretty rough for you. And it's not even just robo technology. It's just the whole industry is shifting in a manner where that's not the central value proposition anymore.
All right. So hopefully that helps answer this question. I think it's a topic that's going to continue to come up, and one that we'll continue to be discussing, because again, I think that the big bad robo stealing our clients in the middle of the night, I think we both agree that was way overblown in terms of the fear. I think it's more about embracing what it's going to bring us. And I think it's going to bring us positive things, not negative. So
yeah.
All right, next question. Any particular advice for a soon-to-be career changer into financial planning that eventually wants to start a financial planning firm?
Oh, career changers coming in to do financial planning. So I've actually written an article or two about this on the site. We'll make sure that we link to it in the show notes. So there are a couple of dynamics I think that crop up for career changers. The first one really that you're articulating is, ultimately, is your goal to actually be someone that owns a firm or someone that's an employee? And there's not like a judgment thing of like one is better than the other, but they're very different roles. They're very different paths. The expectations of what you're going to need to do, what you're going to need to do to succeed, just look very different depending on which of those paths it is that you go down. So ultimately, which one are you moving towards? And it sounds like you've actually figured that out for yourself, that you want to go down the path of eventually being a firm owner. So you're off to a good start. But for any other career changers listening to this coming in, like just that question, do you want to be an employee? Good news, job tends to be a little more stable. You're not necessarily building from scratch. You're not doing the start from zero income thing that everybody else has to do as an entrepreneur. Bad news, you don't necessarily have quite the same kind of upside as building a successful business. You're ultimately beholden to a firm that is either doing well or not and could fire you at some point. I know we have different views out there about what constitutes stable and not. Alan, I know your view, and I actually agree with you on this. Like, as someone that's kind of built a business or two myself, like I find the building my own business path more safe and stable, and the thought of being employed by someone else where I can just be out of a job at,
tomorrow if they so chose.
Yeah, because they just say 2 words, you're fired, and that's that. It's like, that's terrifying to me that, my livelihood's completely dependent on someone else's views. I mean, not just even about whether I'm doing a good job or not, right? Like personality conflicts. I'm doing a great job at a business that's failing, which is like bully for me, but I'm still getting fired because the business just can't pay for me, even though I was doing a great job. So I know lots of different views out there around it, although I'll admit, particularly for people who tend to career change I find a lot of people are coming from employee positions and tend to want to go to employee positions, which actually gets into what I find is the second and probably the biggest challenge for career changers coming in, which is just managing sort of the income transition. So, the good news is advisors who've been working 5+ years tend to make some pretty good money, even as employees, and by 10+ years can make some really good income as employees or building their own firms. The bad news is you make way less than that for the first 1, 3, 5, potentially 7, 10 years. And if you're making pretty good money in another industry, that can be a tough transition. It's a little easier when someone's coming in their 20s often, doesn't necessarily have the family, kids, college, mortgage, all those sorts of things that we tend to be dealing with a little bit further along. And I see a lot of career changers actually struggle with just that income transition of like, man, I'm really upbeat about financial advising and doing financial planning, but like it's a big step backwards for a lot of people to eventually get that 2 steps forward thing down the line.
Yeah, I think there are a couple of things particularly for career changers. They have some great advantages coming into, especially if your plan is to start a firm at some point, and that is potentially having a natural marketplace outside of financial planning. So as myself, I got degrees in financial planning. I became a financial planner immediately. I don't have a network outside of financial planners. So the only way I would have a niche for my natural network is to be a financial planner for financial planners, which we need more of them out there. But if you used to be a computer engineer, or you're a business consultant, or you're a doctor like Carolyn McClanahan down in Jacksonville, guess what? You can build a practice working with a heck of a lot of doctors because a heck of a lot of doctors, which is kind of nice.
And I feel like we should define that term really fast just for people who aren't familiar. So natural market, this is one of our industry jargon things.
True.
Natural market simply means there's some market of people with whom you could do business that you already have a natural connection to already coming in. So you don't have to go out and start doing marketing to form a relationship with this group or community or people. You already have those connections. So you're leaving your old company, everyone that's there. You want to make a niche out of working with people at that company because the employee benefits and the compensation plan's cold because you worked there for 17 years. That's a natural market. And actually, I think one of the reasons why many career changes I see actually do particularly well coming into the industry is because, as you say, they have not just a natural market, they've got kind of a network of people they already know to whom they could go and talk about this new business they're launching and serve those people. But often, going back to the industry or company or career or place that you were is not even just a natural market. It's basically a natural niche.
Exactly.
It's not just that you knew like 100 random people. You knew 100 people at a particular company with particular needs that are specific to that company, and you know everything about it because you already lived it as an employee at that company in that environment. And that's a fantastic opportunity for building a niche business to serve those people and building some very custom service solution for them because you know exactly who you're working with and what their needs are.
And this will actually kind of foreshadow another question that's coming up, but there are some niches that are really hard to break into, and the only way to do it easily is to have come from that market. So, I have a friend that's an advisor that, comes from a family that are farmers. You want to try to work with farmers, ranchers? Oh my gosh, talk about a closed off marketplace. If you don't speak their language, they're not going to trust you as far as they can throw you off their tractor, right?
Yep. I know 1 or 2 advisors and actually 1 lawyer as well who work with police officers because they're former cops. And good luck getting in with the fraternal order if you were not one of them in the past. On the other hand, if you were already one of them, if you're an ex-cop that's now going back, say, hey, I'm creating this great business to work with cops because I've seen how we get abused and all these terrible things, and me and I'm trustworthy and I'm really just here to do the right thing because it's an opportunity. You've got an instant in coming naturally from that marketplace already. You've got a business head start that no one else has. And it's a tremendous opportunity.
And so, again, we have another question coming up specifically on niche. So we'll circle back around to this. But I think there are a couple more things if you're a career changer getting into financial planning and your ultimate goal is to start a firm. If you're willing to be patient, some of us are not all that gifted at patience, but if you're willing to give yourself, if you said, Alan, what can I do over the next 3 to 5 years to prepare myself to start a firm? There's a couple of things. One, get the CFP. Go sign up for a certificate program online, local university, whatever you need to do to get through the CFP courses. You can sign up for a master's degree in financial planning from very reputable universities like Texas Tech and University of Georgia, whatever you want to do education-wise, but get the CFP. It is so valuable in terms of the education that you're going to get, as well as just teaching you what it takes to be a financial planner and what we do.
And to me, frankly, it's just becoming the minimum baseline of
Agreed.
What someone is expected to have and be capable of just to be an advisor.
So that is definitely step one. The next step is I would actually encourage smaller firm employee opportunities over larger firm. And the reason is because if you go work for a smaller firm that has 1 or 2 advisors and you're going to be an advisor there and learn the ropes, you're going to get to see all aspects of the firm. Because when you go to start a firm, you have to do everything. You wear every hat. You are the compliance officer, you're the marketer, you're the financial planner, and you're the janitor, and you've got to do it all. So if you can find an opportunity inside of a firm that will allow you to learn all of those different components, because if there's only 2 or 3 of you there, you still got to be the janitor. That's a really great opportunity. When you go to a larger firm, sometimes because they're so large, in order to be efficient, you tend to be more specialized in your role. And so you may only see one sliver of the total planning process. And so I generally push people with, if there's an opportunity or there's an option and the monies make sense or whatnot, if you can go a little bit smaller firm, I think that that's a huge advantage, just in terms of having the education around what it's going to take.
And the one other item I would add to this as well. So I certainly agree, get your CFP certification, try to find a job in a real planning firm. I think, Alan, there's a lot to be said for your point of just getting in a small firm where you're going to naturally get cross-pollinated into more areas. Consider your income issues, or, if this is going to be a 1 step back for 2 steps forward, like seriously, you're going to need to save up a little more to bridge the income gap. Manage your own household expenses, right? Like, be a good advisor to yourself and your family. Like, this is why things like debt matter, because if you can't take 1 step back to take 2 steps forward because you're so burdened by your own debt payment obligations, your debt's now holding you back. And so, recognize those dynamics. The big piece I'd probably add to this as well, and just in terms of the dynamics or ways to break in well, join one of the professional membership associations. So join FPA, join NAPFA if you're going fee only as an advisor. Join one of the associations, and not just join for the sake of joining, because writing a membership check doesn't get you a job or any connections. Join, go to meetings. Go to your local chapter meetings, your local study group meetings for NAPFA. Step 1, join. Step 2, go to local meetings. Step 3, find 3 experienced planners that you meet, ask to take them out to lunch just so you can pick their brain and ask for advice. You're going to find, for those of you who aren't familiar with this industry, it's a very gracious community. We tend to be very surprisingly willing, I find, compared to what a lot of other industries are, to help each other out, to have conversations. Frankly, planners tend to be very social, personable people because we kind of have to be to do what we do. So we like having lunch with people. So ask some planners out to lunch, buy them lunch. Just ask them a whole bunch of questions about planning, get some insight into the local market, the opportunities. If it turns out you have a good affinity for them and they're hiring, you can find your way to a job by going that path. You don't even have to ask for it. It's going to get noticed just because you're building relationships, you're networking in the truest sense. And get involved even beyond that. Join a committee, join a task force. Do something that immerses yourself into your association community further, because that's networking, that's relationship building, that's forming connections. Those can be paths to future jobs. Those can be paths to future business partners. Those can be paths to business opportunities. You don't necessarily know what's going to come from them. The good news when you're getting started, you have a lot of time. You don't have a lot of clients consuming that time. So fill your time with productive activities, and productive activities includes building relationships and getting out there.
And to kind of close this out, I think whenever I talk to new firm owners, there are a couple of major stressors. One is just not knowing what you don't know, which was my recommendation for getting in a smaller firm. The other is income, as you just mentioned. And this is huge for, whenever you're going to start a practice, you're not going to have income for a while. And part of that is building up savings, but the other part is building up a side income stream, building up some way of bridging this income gap between making your $60,000 a year salary and you're not going to make anything for a while and you need $3,000 a month to cover all your personal expenses. Great. Go find a way, work over the next couple of years to build some way of making that $3,000 a month. And there are so many ways to do this. I mean, we need to just do an entire episode specifically on the side hustle because we have advisors in XYPN that were servers, that drive a city bus, that work as a barista, that work for other financial planners, that are writers. I mean, there are so, work in a family business. There are just so many things that you could do. And if you can take away the pressure of paying your bills off of your business, it is going to exponentially increase your chance of success. And then the final piece that I would throw in here is what we're talking about with niche market is where your client's going to come from and get really, really, really clear on who you're going to want to serve and start building those relationships now. If you have the next 3 to 5 years and you give yourself that leeway to start building your marketplace, building whatever, target market is that you really want to be working with, start blogging to that community or start a podcast to that community, start getting out there, shaking hands, meeting people so that when you do go start your firm, it's very easy for you to say, and now I just started a financial planning practice to serve this very specific target market and you're a part of it. And we've known each other for years. So I think that, in an ideal world, if we could draw up the path of kind of 3 to 5 years to starting a firm, I think those would be my recommendations just in order to pull it all together and make the launch as successful as possible.
Fully agree. It's, building an advisory business is a slow build. So you be ready for that. That's just kind of the dynamic. But because so much of it is a slow build around relationships, start building the relationships now. Build them sooner rather than later. Get going on them sooner rather than later. And as you said, like a lot of this you can even start doing before you actually make the transition in to become an advisor.
And some of it depends on what firm you're with. I had to pull up the episode number. If you go back, let's see, we had Justin Rush on back in episode 21, xyplanningnetwork.com/21. He's somebody who essentially built an entire practice underneath somebody else and then broke away and took 60 plus clients with him. And the firm owner that he was with was not upset about it. So you can go back and listen to that episode to kind of hear one way of doing it. There's a lot of different things you can be doing to prepare yourself. I will say this, if you sit on your hands and you just act like an employee and you just do whatever it takes to get by and get your paycheck, whenever you go to launch a firm, you will more than likely not be successful. There is so much that you can be doing. And something I can't emphasize enough is all of the interviews that we do on this show with successful advisors, the one common thread is they busted their butts to get designations, to get training, to get involved, to go over, well beyond the call of duty at their firm and outside and just did what it took. So it takes a lot of effort, but if you plan it out, it will definitely ensure your success or at least increase the chance of success. All right. Amen. So next question, which kind of pivots off of, or I guess, tangents off a little bit of what we were just talking about. It says, my niche seems to be very hard to break into. This particular advisor wants to work with XY aged faculty members at universities. I'm interested in talking through best practices. So any ideas on how to start basically breaking into this niche, as well as how to find other advisors with a similar niche to learn from?
All right, wait. And what's the niche again exactly? Or how did he frame it?
It was framed as young professional or Gen X, Gen Y aged faculty members at universities. So, I mean, just based on what I know about the university system, this is an example of a tough market to break into. And I wouldn't say this is as difficult as maybe police officers or ranchers, but there have historically been populations of people that our industry has taken advantage of over the years and have done a lot of really negative things to kind of give people a very bad taste in their mouth about financial services. So there are some niches that are harder to break into than others. If you want to be the person that breaks into the niche of working with new parents, I think that's a lot easier than necessarily university professors. But the flip side is once you're in and you get it, as long as you do a good job and you take care of your clients, you don't do anything stupid, they will refer like crazy.
Well, I don't even know if I would agree that this is necessarily like a punishingly hard niche to get into, or any more than, frankly, any other consumer in the country that has a negative view of financial services because of all the terrible things our industry does. I mean, I think, what was it? The last consumer trust survey was like, we're worse than lawyers and car salesmen, but we're still beating Congress. I think that's where we were on likability.
We are not Congress.
We are not Congress. Thank God. We are better than politicians.
We're getting close, but not yet.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think you're going to face that dynamic in lots of industries. So here are a few things that come to mind to me. Something like Gen X and Gen Y at universities, frankly, to me, still too broad. Like, okay, so like basically you want to work with anybody who's associated with the university between the age of 20 and 50. What on earth do these people have in common that you can build a relevant business around? Because to me, it's too broad. It's too broad. That's not focused in any way. Like, the point isn't just saying, I just want to work with younger people under age 50 who are in these generations for the sake of working with them. It's that you have to go a step further in focusing in. So like, what are some ways you might do this? I work with younger faculty members at this particular institution. So your goal is, I'm going to know everything there is to know about this institution. I'm going to know all their 403B plan options. I'm going to know all of the different employee benefits. I'm going to know how the pension system works at the university. I'm going to know how pay gets determined. I'll be able to give them advice of like, hey, you want to figure out how to negotiate a pay raise at this university because, income's one of the biggest drivers for young people, not their retirement accounts and all the rest. Like, here's how you play the system to get the biggest raises out of the university, because I know how the pay schedules get determined because I'm an expert in the university system and I've interviewed every professor to figure out how all this stuff works. You could even drill down to particular departments, particular schools, right? You go to a large enough university system, some state university system, you could have all the clients you need just from professors in one school, like just a school of business under, the giant 40,000 person university. So how can we get more specific? You could say, I'm going to specialize in people that are going through the process of pursuing tenure track positions, and then all the decisions that they need to go through when they make tenure. And, I can have a blog for newly tenured professors. Here's all the things, so that when someone of these people types into Google, like, what do I need to think about when I make tenure? You've got like the number one site, newlytenuredprofessors.com, where you explain all the different things that they need to start thinking about and how your family planning and financial planning changes when you get into an opportunity where you're now in a tenured job. And, hey, now you can look at consulting gigs and you can look at doing outside businesses, and here's what your teaching load is, and here's how you balance out your income from working in the school versus outside projects, and all of these things that you can do that's specific, not even just to tenured professors, but maybe for just that university. Because again, a large enough university alone will give you all the clients that you need. So to me, you need to get more specific. What group of people, what problem are you trying to solve for what common group of people? That's, to me, is still what you need to boil it down to. And just saying I work with, people tied to an academic institution in their 20s, 30s, and 40s doesn't cut. I'm not even sure. Alan, maybe you can clarify it from the lead in again. Like, I'm not even sure the person said professors, or if that's something.
It said faculty.
Faculty. So, like, even what does faculty mean? Like, are you going to work? The needs of a 48-year-old tenured professor is different than a 24-year-old grad student adjunct. So, like, are you really working with all of them? Because those are about as different a night and day as you can get. So, just like, what does this mean? Even how broadly are we going to construe faculty? Does that mean teaching faculty, or like, does the grounds maintenance crew count as faculty at this institution because they're on the payroll and they have financial planning needs too, but it's different than the tenured professors? So who really are you trying to work with? And it's okay to get more specific. It's better to get more specific, because when you talk to the people who actually have that need, you're so specific, like, holy crap, you specialize in people just like me. We need to talk.
Yeah, and that kind of goes into the point of like, you got to become an expert. You don't become an expert after you get the clients. You become an expert to get the clients. So if you want to work with university faculty and I say PSLF, do you know what that means? Are you an expert in how that applies to university faculty members? If you need to go look up that acronym, you aren't an expert yet in university faculty members. It's public service loan forgiveness. Do you know how that applies to paying off their student loans in 10 years under pay-as-you-earn and income-based repayment program? Do you know how long it takes to pay it off? Do you know how to help them structure their payments to be sure they qualify for the program? Are you an expert? And if you're not an expert, go become one. And because don't hold yourself out as an expert in working, that your niche market is not your niche just because you say it is. It's because you are truly the most knowledgeable person on the planet about that particular client's situation. And if you want to get in with the university professors at your local university, you've got to be an expert on all things to deal with them. And we've talked about this on previous episodes, but heck, faculty salaries, they're online. If you want to know what people make, you can just go Google every single person that works for the government's salary is sitting there online. You can download HR documents. You can find out what their 401k or in this instance 403b or 457, what the investment options are there. You can find out a lot of information. You can really become an expert so that when you're sitting down with these university faculty members that are in the ag school or the business school or whatnot, you can be the expert. And that's going to help you get in with your first few clients, because it only takes a few clients to really showcase your expertise to lead to more clients through client referrals.
So true. So true. It just so much. Yeah, there's so much opportunity in the space, but it all comes from focus. It all comes from focus. I know a lot of people listen to this regularly are getting tired of hearing us just beat this drum about focus and niche, but we're not going to stop. It's that essential. It's that important. It actually really does matter that much.
Now, the second half of the question was how to network and find other advisors that are in the same niche so that you can discuss best practices. And we're running up on our time, so I really want to get to our last question. So I'll speed through my answer here and you can throw in any thoughts. One is if you want to join xyplannetwork.com/VIP, we have over 300 advisors now that are inside of that community that you can join and interact with, find out if there are other folks that are working with university faculty members. Google who's writing content, who's blogging or creating podcasts geared towards university faculty members that are creating content that's applicable in your space. Start your own blog because other people will find you that way. Other people will see your content that aren't necessarily blogging and say, oh, this guy's an expert or this gal's an expert. I really want to talk to them and learn from them. And that's kind of where study groups come from. Join FPA Next Gen, join NAPA Genesis. If you are of the correct age, if not, you can join those organizations either way and get inside their forums and ask around. You'll find other advisors with these niche markets. And if you want one off the top of the head, we had on Jake Keebler back in episode 7, and his specialty is university faculty members. So Jake's probably going to kill me because he got about 4 million emails after our episode. So now he'll get one more. But there's an advisor that he could probably point you in the direction of other people specializing in university professors. So just basically look for things that we're telling you to do, which is look for people that are producing content that are out there saying that they're serving these clients. And I would suspect they're going to be happy to get involved in a study group of people that are doing similar work. Because let's be honest, you can't serve all university faculty members, right? It's not like this is a terribly small market. You're not going to be competing with each other for clients.
No, not at all. And again, in a world where most of us need 75 to 125 core clients to have a successful business, and there's tens of thousands of faculty members. So, at some point down the road when there's, a few thousand advisors specializing in this niche, maybe you'll start bumping into each other. Right now, you can learn from each other way more than you're going to struggle with it.
Totally agree. All right. So our final question of the day is most of the commentary I've been listening to and reading about speaks to new firm launch, specifically around this monthly retainer model and serving younger clients. But I'm having difficulties finding examples of firm that recognize the value of this model inside of a larger firm before ultimately losing a capable planner to their own startup. Any thoughts?
So large firms rolling out this kind of model. So we're certainly seeing some growing interest in it. We have our corporate membership tier now for XY Planning Network, which we rolled out because large firms were coming to us and saying, we want to start doing this within our firm. Can you help us figure out how to do it? So, and we have almost half a dozen firms in that tier structure now that are starting to experiment with doing this. So we're hearing it more and more. Honestly, I haven't seen a ton of big success stories for it yet. I feel like this is The XY Planning Network and monthly retainer model trend is, new, maybe 2 or 3 years out now. Larger firms doing this, I feel like it's even newer. So we're probably going to need another year or two to really see who's doing it successfully and starting to gain momentum. But I'll say a few things that I'm seeing and hearing already as initial either challenges or opportunities of this. So on the one hand, for large firms doing this, it's an unbelievable opportunity, because the biggest challenge that a lot of firms have when they start this from scratch, when they're starting a firm from scratch, you got no clients. You got to go find your market, your natural market, form your niche, begin forming relationships with the niche, going out there, building all these connections, trying to get your practice going. For an existing large firm that's already got a client base of dozens or hundreds or even 1,000 or few clients, if you're a big RIA, you've already got a huge market to send this out to. When you decide that you want to do this, the first thing you're not going to do is go to your first networking meeting from scratch. The first thing you're going to do is send an email to your 1,000 clients and the 100 centers of influence you built relationships with as a large firm over the past 10 or 20 years, and announce this awesome new offering that you're providing to a group of people who already trust you and do business with you and refer to you. So it's actually kind of surprised me that large firms have not been faster to adopt this, because frankly, I think it'd be even easier to launch it in a large firm than a small firm, because you just already have a natural base of people to communicate to who already trust you, do business with you, and can refer you, or already have referred you in the past and would be happy to refer you to a new segment of clients because you have a new solution that would fit for them. Now, the challenge that I see in the large firm environment, we tend to get so and I say we as a partner in an independent RIA as well that has $1.8 billion under management, 1,000 plus clients. Like I live sort of the large independent firm environment as well. We get very stuck in the way that we're accustomed to doing things. And like, I'm not trying to slam my own firm about it. It's just kind of a reality for business. Our whole firm and our infrastructure is built around the way we serve our traditional clients, which tend to be boomers, which tend to be retirement focused, who tend to have assets, and we do financial planning and investment management for them all in one. And the challenge that I see crop up for a lot of firms when they try to do this is that they try too hard to do this new model on their existing infrastructure, where they staff it and structure it the same way, and they're trying to figure out how to push it into their investment structure, and they're trying to figure out how to push it into their customer service area, and they're trying to map it onto their existing infrastructure, and it's just not working because it's a different business. It's a different service model. You're going to do different things for clients and structure it differently and price it differently, which means you really need to be prepared to run it differently as well. And there's a term I had heard recently. I don't know if he wants to be public about it, so I won't say his name, but he's a younger planner working at a larger firm where he's trying to do this. And the term that he gave to me, which I've now found out is out there, I admit I hadn't heard it before he said it, is intrapreneurship. So as opposed to entrepreneurship, where you kind of go out there externally and make your own firm, he's trying to be an intrapreneur and create and build this within his existing large firm. And the dynamics are very different. That what he's finding, like, to do it successfully, kind of go to the founders of the firm and say, look, here's what I want to do. Here's the opportunity. Here's sort of the internal business plan about how I'm going to do it. And if you want me to do it successfully, you need to give me some leeway to do it, and then get the blank out of my way and let me do it as like a separate firm within a firm. Because if you guys try to push this on the existing firm's infrastructure, it's going to get screwed up. It's too different of a model. It's a good model. It's a profitable model. It works, but it's different than the existing firm's infrastructure. And so I think you have to kind of launch these as firm within a firm sorts of structures, where it's going to have its own staffing, its own infrastructure, its own people, which is really just going to start with probably a person. You're going to build a separate support team around it. You're going to build separate process and structure. You get shared brand. You can share kind of some website and marketing and messaging. Certainly you'll show some infrastructure around things like CRM, but don't try too hard to map it onto the existing structure. Really treat it like, a separate, a wholly owned subsidiary within the parent company, and let it build independently. Leverage the parts of the firm that are valuable to leverage, like existing CRM and technology infrastructure, marketing, website, and brand, and existing clients and referral sources. But let the rest of the service model and the staffing and infrastructure be as separate as possible, because it's very hard to blend them together. They're too different.
When we launched, taking a step back from even launch, when we conceptualized XY Planning Network, we wanted to bring real financial planning to Gen X and Gen Y. And we knew there was a demand. I mean, we knew there were lots of firms that were trying to figure out how to do it. What we ended up becoming in our first year was a big group of startups, which was wholly unintentional. And I think what happened was that, and we're happy that we went that direction. But ultimately what happened was that larger firms just take so long to make decisions, to roll things like this out, to fund it, to figure out exactly how it's going to work, that there was a lot of pent up energy among the group that I will call the pissed off junior advisors that were just waiting for an opportunity. They saw the opportunity, they broke away, they started their own firm. They had been sitting in these positions for 3, 5, even 10 years, begging to do what we were proposing. They'd been told no so many times that we gave them the opportunity and they bolted. Now what we're starting to see are more and more larger firms that are saying, hey, this is interesting. How could we do this inside the larger firm? So we never wanted, and we still don't want XYPN to be viewed as the home of startup advisors. We didn't want to be a launch pad. We wanted to be, and we still have a desire to be, the organization of advisors that are dedicated to serving the next generation clients using this monthly subscription model. But it has been interesting to watch, and we're finally starting to see some companies getting on board. And I'll give a couple of examples. One that has been doing this for a really long time. They're not using monthly subscriptions. They're using an hourly model, but that's Ronald Blue. So Ronald Blue is $8 billion under management. They've got like 26 offices. They are a huge fee-only firm that incorporates faith-based principles into their planning process. They have a separate firm within a firm that serves clients that don't meet the asset minimum, and they do it on an hourly basis. They're a really good example of they're growing out a fairly successful team that is dedicated to these clients. Now, they're not in love with the hourly model, I don't think, and I'm trying to convince firms like theirs to move over to monthly subscriptions, but they've been doing this for a really long time in serving these clients that are, and again, not necessarily just younger, but don't meet the asset minimums. These models work with older clients as well that don't meet the asset minimums. Another firm, and they are our founding corporate member, is Abacus Wealth Partners. They're actually the RIA that bought my RIA, Serenity Financial, earlier this summer. And they have, they were historically the $1 million minimum firm, and they brought in kind of the firm within a firm concept to serve clients on a $200, $300, and $400 a month basis. And that was kind of championed by JD Bruce, their president, who we will definitely have on the show sometime early 2016, because I want to showcase how some of the larger firms are doing these concepts. But it all comes down to creating the service model, the service calendar, the fee structure that allows the firm to be profitable today. Again, neither Kitces or I are fans of playing the client lottery of let's work with a bunch of poor people and hope one of their parents dies and leaves them money and then they'll be rich one day. It's not a good model. How do we serve them profitably inside of a larger firm? And it absolutely can be done. It's just actually having, in many ways, the people at the top that are willing to support it. So Abacus got it done because their president, the person that runs the company, said, well, this is what we're going to do. Mm-hmm. If an associate advisor that had been there 3 years showed up and said, hey, I'm going to do this within the firm, and it gets shut down, there's not a lot they can do. And guess what? They come join XY Planning Network and they start their own firm. That has been the model. So, for the larger firms out there that are ignoring this, ultimately, I assure you, you will lose anyone that's walking into your office that is begging to work with younger clients. If you're not giving them the opportunity, we made it really, really, really easy for them to leave your firm and start their own firm. I'm not poaching your people. I'm not calling them or cold calling them or connecting with them on LinkedIn to try to sneak in. They are flooding.
They're calling us. They want out. They want to serve their peers. And if they don't have an opportunity to do it there, they're finding a way to do it on their own.
So I encourage you that, and we've said this numerous times, but if you're in this position of, no, I don't really want to do that, that's okay. There's no shoulds here. I don't believe that you should serve younger clients. I'm simply going to tell you that don't be surprised if your younger advisors are coming to you and they want to serve this demographic. They're going to leave and go do their own thing because ultimately that's the way they do it. And what I'll also tell you is we have a lot of people starting firms that never wanted to be an entrepreneur. They would love to be an intrapreneur. They would love to have a salary. They would love to do this inside your firm structure. You won't let them. And so the only option that they have currently is a relatively new option, which we've kind of helped to create, which is they can go start their own firm and not be by themselves doing their own thing because they're getting the community, they're getting the technology, they're getting a lot of stuff that is scary when you're starting a firm.
And I think that's actually you said it lightly there, but it's actually a really important point that honestly, like a lot of the people we find that come to XY Planning Network, at the end of the day, I don't think they actually really want to be out on their own doing this. They're doing it because they couldn't find any opportunity to do it within a larger firm that was willing to support them and make the long-term investment. So Frank, if you're a large firm and you're worried about retention of people and whether they're going to walk away and come out to play and form their own firms under XY Planning Network, like you have an opportunity to roll out a version of this model within your firm. We have a corporate membership structure to help you do that, but you have an opportunity to do it within your firm. And the irony, like, they're ready to be entrepreneurial enough to do it, right? Because like they're willing to leave you and be entrepreneurial enough to do it on their own. Like, as a firm owner myself, like, any employee that's entrepreneurially driven enough that they would leave just to spite me to make the business they want to make, if I can't figure out a way to give them an opportunity to funnel that entrepreneurial energy within my own firm, like, woe to me if I can't do that. And, frankly, we've made that mistake once or twice in the past with our advisory firm and lost one or two good people that I really regret. It really saddens me. And they went off and they're doing some really cool entrepreneurial stuff. And I look at it and say, wow, not giving our people enough flexibility to build something they're excited to build that I know works for the firm in the long run is sad for them and a loss for us. So it really is an opportunity. If you're a firm owner listening to this, I hope you're really thinking about whether you're losing entrepreneurial people who maybe didn't want to take the giant leap, but you've given them no other choice. And for younger folks who are there, if you're listening to this and you're struggling with this, first and foremost, I would still encourage you, like, try to push this up the line first. You don't need to leave your firm. Often the people above you may not even realize how frustrated you are. You might have to paint the picture for them a little bit, but not universally, but I think you'll often find, frankly, entrepreneurial business owners, the founders and partners of your firm, tend to have a lot of respect for entrepreneurialism. Just entrepreneurs tend to like other entrepreneurs. So if you come with this entrepreneurial idea and say, I'm excited to build this within the firm, and here's the resource I think I need, and here's the opportunity for the firm in the long run, and I want you guys to support me at it, I think you'll actually be surprised how often a firm says yes. It's not always going to happen, but it'll probably actually happen more than you realize if you take the initiative for it. And I realize it's scary to take that initiative, but it's probably still less scary than quitting your job and going out on your own. So if that's your struggle and you'd rather remain in the firm where you are, recognize like there may be more opportunity than that than you realize. Just you have to take your own destiny by the horns a little bit. You can't just wait for the firm to suddenly realize that you're this opportunity to build something. Push them a little and try to make it happen.
Yeah, and I think you'll find there are a lot of businesses out there that would love to facilitate the building of this model. They just don't have anybody passionate enough about doing it. And they may see the opportunity, but just they don't want to, they don't know how, and they need someone to take ownership of it. So to Michael's point, give it a shot. Worst thing they can say is no, and you're in the exact same position you are today.
Yep.
And if that's the case and you're just really, really passionate about it, well, you can go back to our last question about career changing, and you can start to kind of build out, your 3 to 5 year plan to go launch your own firm if that's essentially what you decide to do. But yeah. All right, well, 4 questions. This may be a record low. I think 5 was our previous low, or maybe it matches our low. But
we did the pre-show, the pre-question topic show rant. We pontificated on the value of podcasting in the first place. So maybe we screwed up our own timing a little bit there.
Oh, well, people love listening to us for over an hour, of course. So, and just so folks know, when we first launched, we had planned to do 45-minute episodes. I don't think we've had one less than an hour yet. So fun part of it. So good at that. Yeah. Well, Michael, thanks so much for being on, man.
Absolutely. Thank you.
As I said in the intro, I do love mailbag days. And remember that if you want to get your questions answered, you can join our exclusive VIP community at xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP and ask any questions that you want to hear Michael and I weigh in on. Also, remember that you can find the show notes along with any resources mentioned in this episode at xyplanningnetwork.com/28. This month's episodes are brought to you by Financial Planners Assistance, providing compliance services to financial planners and other investment advisors since 1982. Financial Planners Assistance is a boutique consulting firm that provides the personalized compliance services firms are looking for. Now, I've personally worked with Financial Planners Assistance since launching my firm back in 2012, and I can't say enough about the awesome service and support I've received, including going through an audit by the state of Wisconsin. Check them out at financialplannersassistance.com, and you can also go back and listen to our interview with their president and senior compliance consultant, Jim Cullen. Thanks so much for joining me today. We'll see you next time.
You're not alone, and you're not crazy. It's scary starting, building, and growing your own financial planning firm. And that's why we put together a free private community just for you, the Cutting Edge Financial Planner. Go to xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP or text XYPN Radio to 33344 and join a network of thousands ready to change the lives of Gen X and Gen Y clients.